Preparing to go live with the meeting.
Now streaming live. Hello, YouTube. We're here. Hello, everyone. Susie Rains here with Kimberly
Preparing
Ann
to
Ward
go
of
live with the meeting. Sorry.
That's
Okay.
okay.
Ready now.
We are here. So, welcome to the 5 Secrets of Manifesting Success on Your Own Terms. This is our workshop that we're doing. We do this monthly, and Kimberly Ann Ward and myself with Somagetics. And I am a Business Foundation Trauma Energetics coach, and I use the Somagetics Trauma Energetics with my clients from an entrepreneurial perspective. In this workshop, we're going to be talking about the 5 defense and gift of patterns, trauma patterns. Kimberly's going to explain what the patterns are and give us an overview of that, and then her and I are going to break it down. These patterns show up. We're always manifesting, and these patterns show up when we are in defense. So we may be having a visual, I want to manifest this beautiful life, but we're manifesting from a trauma pattern, from a defensive pattern. And so in this workshop, you're going to take away what each of these patterns are and how they're showing up and limiting what's happening in your manifesting. So welcome to this workshop, and I'm going to hand it over to Kimberly so she can explain what are these patterns.
Thank you, Susie. So I'm really happy to share this map of understanding that we use called the 5 survival energy patterns because it helps us understand what are the things that we do, the strategies that we utilize to manage when we're stressed or overwhelmed. Okay. I have used this map of understanding for many years, and it was a game changer for me in my work with my clients, but also for me personally with my own healing and my own growth, as well as how I was able to show up and interact in relationship. So it's such a useful tool to understand your own defensive patterns as well as the people around you when they're in defense, how you can respond better to them, how you can support them in their own healing, and how we can understand ourselves better so that we can start to manifest from what we want instead of being in a state of defense, which is where we're trying to protect ourselves from what we don't want. Okay, so when we're talking about defense, we're talking about being in a state where we have specific beliefs about the world, we have specific emotions that are the predominant emotion that we're living in and experiencing, and that shifts our physiology. And when we're in a state of survival physiology, our whole chemical, emotional, hormonal, neurotransmitter system in our body is setting ourselves up to help us stay in a state of defense to protect ourselves from things that we don't want to happen. Now, it is important as human beings that we have the capacity to defend ourselves because as a human being and having a body, we can have danger. We can actually have a threat. We can be in a place where we can be compromised physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so it is important that we have capacity to defend. The problem is that when we're children, we don't have a lot of tools or capacity to defend ourselves. And so we figure out how to feel safe or buffer ourselves from what's happening in our environment with the tools we have on board at that particular age. So when we talk about the patterns, we're going to go from the progression from patterns that got wired in at the earliest stage of development, which is like in vitro to 6 months old, where we have not a lot of capacity because we can't get up and run. We can't fight. We can't do much of anything other than check out. So we're going to talk about the earliest stage where we don't have a lot of capacity and what that predominant vibrational emotional state is and defensive action are. And then as we grow up, we have more skills and tools on board. So if I am wounded or injured or overwhelmed at an infant age, it's going to be a little bit of a different response in the world as if I'm than if I'm at 6 months versus a year and a half versus 3 years versus 5 years old. So we are going to go through the different stages of development. And as we grow up, if we have an ideal environment, which no one does, no one has a perfect ideal environment. There is stress in the world, there is overwhelm, there is times where we need to be defended. So all of us had to learn how to adapt to our environment. Some had a more peaceful environment, some had a more um, dangerous or toxic environment, but we all learn to adapt to our environment based on the age where we had the stress and the capacities we had on board at the time. What happens then is we figure out a way to protect ourselves from overwhelming things. For instance, the first pattern we're going to cover is the leaving pattern, 0 in vitro, 0 to 6 months old. When we have a stressful environment at that age, we can't get up and run. We can't speak and ask for help. But what we can do is energetically check out. So I'm personally a leaving pattern and I had some birth trauma. So I learned how to check out. In fact, I remember when I was born, I know people have a hard time believing that sometimes you remember that far back, but I do. And I remember being up in the corner of the room watching my body. And I was really good at that because that was the best option for me to manage how scary and overwhelming it was to be in my body. It was painful and it was scary from the first moment because the birth trauma was overwhelming to my nervous system. So I used the tool I had, which was check out. So what happens then with us is that we use a tool, it works, and then we use it again. And we use it again and again. Now I'm growing up and I have other capacities. Now I can speak and I can talk and I can run away. And I still use checking out because it becomes habitual, it becomes a habit. So it's so wired in us. And the pattern that's wired in is not just an emotion, but it's also a belief system. It's how we see the world and how we run our energy. And as we continue to see the world this way, have this belief system, we have a predominant emotional state and we have a predominant way that we move our energy, which shapes everything in our life. It shapes our physical form. Our body gets shaped around how we think, how we feel, and how we run our energy. It shapes how we see the world, how we see other people, and how we interpret what's happening to us. So these patterns give us a real sense of what is our predominant vibrational state, our predominant emotion and belief system. And when we know this, then we can change it. So, our hope is to help you have a better understanding of how, when, and why we get stuck in these patterns that worked when we were children, but we keep using them even though these strategies are not effective or appropriate in our adult life. Right. So as Susie always says so beautifully, like we are always manifesting. We don't manifest what we want, we manifest what we are. And what that means is with the law of attraction, I am vibrating at a specific energetic rate or level, and I am going to pull in other things that are at that level. Right? I am attracting what I am. So we're going to take a look at the map of consciousness from Dr. David Hawkins so that we can get a sense of the different vibrational rates, the different energetic levels or different vibrational levels of the patterns. Each pattern has a predominant emotion and vibrational state that they're in most of the time. So this is going to give you a sense of when we got wounded, why we got wounded, the main defense or emotional state that we're in. And then we'll give you some tips on the most important thing that you need to shift that pattern. All right, that was a long explanation. This is a topic that is so fascinating to me. I've been studying it for almost 10 years and we teach it in our program. And so we definitely have a lot of resources for you. If this is interesting to you and it resonates with you, don't worry, we'll give you some more resources. But should we go into the first pattern, the leaving pattern? Susie?
Do you want to show the chart
I do.
from
Yeah.
David Hawkins? Yeah,
I will
let's
show
look
them.
at that.
Let's look at this map of consciousness and what's going to what's helpful for me with this map of consciousness is to understand that, again, we have predominant emotions, belief systems, and how we behave in the world, and it's all got an energetic resonance to it, right? When we are in the predominant emotion of shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, anger, notice here that we're in the survival paradigm. Okay, this is victim consciousness. This is where we feel like things are happening to me. And it's a not very empowered state. In fact, it's very disempowering because we're identified as the body and we are identified as our main emotional state. Right? These are the lower vibrations, right? From 20 to 175, we are in survival physiology. We're in the survival state of mind, which is victim consciousness. Once we are able to raise this emotional state above 200, now we're in a more empowered state in our energetic being and our physical body. And we're able to start to feel empowered enough to realize that we're creative beings, that life isn't just happening to me, life is happening for me. And in fact, I can change my state and I can manifest and create something different than I have right now. Right? But when we're stuck in our survival identity with the five patterns, which we'll explain, we're stuck in the survival pattern, excuse me, survival paradigm, and we are in these lower energetic spaces below 200. The goal for healing is shifting our emotional state so that we can increase our vibrational state and we can reach these higher levels of consciousness. The magic tipping point is at that level 200 courage. Okay. So when we work with the patterns with our clients, we're helping them get to that point where they are no longer in victim consciousness, things happening to them, but they're in a place of empowerment where they realize, oh, I do have some capacity to create something better. I actually have the capacity to shift my state so that I can move up into the state of consciousness, the creator consciousness, and I'm going to purposefully, intentionally create what I want, as opposed to being in survival physiology where I am manifesting what I don't want, because that's what defense is. Stay away from what I don't want versus creating. I'm moving forward towards what I do want. So each time we move up to a higher state of consciousness here with our energetic frequency, we're getting closer and closer to healing and letting go of the past pattern, and we're creating new patterns that leave us in that creator consciousness. So that's the
Kimberly,
big map. Yes. Go.
yeah, if you can stay here for a minute, I just want to identify.
Mhm.
I'm just looking at this chart and it's coming to me when we're thinking of manifesting. So we're going to go into manifesting. When you look at the survival list there, I'm going to give you a scenario. I want to manifest more money. If I am in that lower vibration, I'm seeing life from a lower vibration, then I'm going to be angry when it doesn't happen. Versus neutral, which is higher up. So if I'm mentally, because we're always manifesting. So if in my mind, and this was me last year, working on my business, wanting to bring in money. So I would be in this visualization and I'd be thinking, okay, I'm visioning more money. My business is successful. Stuff's happening. Yay. Okay. And then I would go to work and I'd go to my job and I'd do my business. And when it didn't happen, I was frustrated. I was angry. Why is it not happening? Impatient. So the desire and anger, I'm looking at that. And there was a little bit of fear in there because it was like, oh, I don't know how to be successful because I'm a new business owner. So what does that really look like? Okay, fear of the unknown. So those three clump together. Manifesting is coming from, I'm scared to be successful because I don't know what that looks like. It's unknown. I have a desire to want to make more money. And so I have an expectation, expecting to make more money, but then I'm going to get frustrated and angry when it doesn't happen. And so I'm staying in that lower vibration because of the wounding. And we're going to go through where these show up in which pattern. So I'm in this wounding and I'm like, why is it not happening? So now we're going to move up the ladder. So let's look higher up on the chart. If I can understand the pattern, the wounded defensive pattern, then I have and that takes courage. So you have to look at yourself. So you're going to look inside and you're going to go, oh, there it is. And you're going to see the wound. That's your courage. Then you can look at it objectively, neutrality. So you're moving up this ladder while you are practicing reprogramming and redoing your vibrational state. You're transmuting the energy from that lower vibration. We're going to transmute it, but it takes that courage piece to really look at and go, what pattern what am I manifesting from? I'm manifesting from this lower vibration. And you're getting exactly what you want. I'm getting exactly the frustration around not having. And it just keeps in this, the cycle just keeps happening until I look inside and I go, let me go back. Let me be neutral. Now I'm going to manifest, oh, I'm successful. Boop, let that go. I'm not even thinking about it anymore. I'm just going to keep going on with my life. And if it doesn't happen, it's no big deal. Like the letting go piece is probably one of the most challenging, but if you are aware of your pattern that's running, you're going to see the resistance. And we're going to talk about resistance versus receiving in each pattern. So I just wanted to name that. Thank you, Kimberly, for keeping that up, because you will see while you're manifesting, you can actually use this as a guide and go, well, how am I feeling in this moment? Am I being neutral? Or am I in fear? Or I feel grief? Or I'm feeling guilty? Or I have shame? What is happening here? So thanks for sharing that, Kimberly.
Yeah, thanks for that contribution. It's helpful to remember that these are it's skills. It is a skill to be able to get to that neutral place where you can objectively observe. Takes courage to get to that place, and then some skill to stay in the place where you can objectively observe what's happening. Once you get to that place, then we give you tools to help you make sense of what's happening, right? And these patterns help you make sense of what you're doing, why you chose the pattern, why you're using this pattern, why it's the most effective pattern in the situation you were in as a child. And now you can see it objectively going, oh, damn, I'm still doing that thing that I've been doing since I was young, and it's really not working. And as you have more awareness around it, now you have some space instead of being so identified as the person that does this thing. What you start to realize is that you're a being that's having this experience, and you get to decide how you perceive what that experience is. And that right there is your capacity to shift the vibration of your state, and you attract the vibration of what you're in. So if you're in the vibration of fear, which if you're in a leaving pattern based on early childhood stress and overwhelm from about 0 to 6 months, or again, it could be in utero. If your mother was in a lot of stress, your system was bathed in stress hormones. And so you start to have that need for defense very early on. And all you can do is check out. So in the leaving pattern, their predominant experience or emotion is fear. And it's really fear of being in the body. It doesn't feel safe. They don't then show up for life, and they're not grounded. So their resistance in life is it's not safe. It's not safe for me to show up. I'm not going to show up. I'm going to avoid. I'm not going to stay grounded because it doesn't feel good and it's not safe. I'm going to check out and I'm going to be out here. The problem with that is then I have a hard time receiving what I want to receive and what I'm trying to manifest because I don't show up. I'm not grounded. I don't feel safe enough in my body to actually be present and allow myself to receive. I have to be grounded and embodied if I want to manifest. And so the need for this pattern is to feel safe in the body, but they're stuck in fear. They're stuck in the false belief of I don't exist, it's not safe to exist. So with the leaving pattern again, you're going to be stuck at the very lowest level of energetic vibration, and it's possible to move out. When you learn how to work with your energy, and the leaving pattern has to learn to be safe in the body and feel grounded. So when we think of these patterns, I want you to think about the energetic healing that needs to happen. We're always thinking in terms of energy at Somagetics. It's all energy is what happens first before things manifest in the physical. So the energetics of the experience of the leaving pattern was it is not safe to be grounded. So I resist being in my body. So therefore I can't receive. So that's the first pattern. Susie, you're going to do the next pattern, the merging pattern.
So the merging pattern, and again, this one is 6 months to, correct me, I always get mixed up on the years. 6 months to
About a year
a
and a half,
year and a
year and a half
half.
to 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the resistance around this one, and I'm gonna talk about the emotion and the vibrational state is shame. I can confidently say that I think everyone experiences this in a lifetime. We just do. It's a human experience. But for this pattern, this is the one that sticks with them. This is the defensive emotion that's showing up. And it's just a default for them. And this causes resistance around I need to be liked and the feeling of not enough. Not enough money, not enough time. The other false belief is that love will solve everything. Having enough will solve everything. If I just had enough, if I just had this other thing, if I had this love, if I had this money, if I had this time, it'd all be okay. And this is a false belief. Nothing comes external. Kimberly just named it beautifully. Everything's energy first. So if you're looking outside for fulfillment, which in the merging pattern, that is what happens in that 6 months to a year and a half, is you're not full. You didn't get enough. Something happened in that age bracket. And it could be that you just come from a large family and you have multiple siblings and your parents just didn't have enough bandwidth to manage. And so you somewhere in your nervous system was programmed that you were not getting enough attention, enough food. Some of us, I'm going to say I'm one of those, we didn't have a lot of food growing up. It was just a fact of life. Not enough food, not enough time, not enough love, not enough attention. And again, this is life perception. So as a toddler, as a little one, I came into the world with expectations of how things should be in my little brain. And if the things don't line up, then I didn't get enough. And I know this is for my own personal experience. As a kid, I was a crier. I cried about everything. And my sister didn't. That just isn't how she expressed herself. And so my perception is different than hers in the same family, with the same situation, same environment. So thinking about these patterns and realizing that your perception at that age defined what you considered overwhelm and stress. So in the merging pattern, my perception at that age of not having enough, whatever that was, I developed the use of this pattern. It's not one that I identify with as strongly as the next pattern, but I see now that I understand the patterns because we have access to all of them and we use all of them in different capacities in our lifetime. I can see where that developmental piece plays a role in how I show up in life now. Did I miss anything there?
No, I think you covered that really well. And some of the points that you said that I would like to reiterate is you are not your pattern. You are using the pattern as a strategy to deal with life. And we all have multiple patterns, meaning I can use the leaving pattern in certain circumstances. I might use the merging pattern in certain circumstances. I might use the rigid pattern in different circumstances. And it's actually better if you have access to more patterns because it gives you more options on how to respond to the world. But all of us really have a predominant pattern and, and another pattern that we use most often. So usually there's two main patterns that we use, our predominant and then the secondary. And the good news is all of the patterns also have beautiful gifts, right? So the gift of the leaving pattern is they're really good at being out of the body. So they have access to spiritual wisdom. They have access to a high creative and intelligent type of energy and experience. So there's beautiful gifts. The problem is when we use the pattern in defense, when we don't need it. And because we used them as children and needed it and it worked, we get wired into it as a habitual pattern. So now I show up in my adult life and I'm using these patterns when I don't need them. And then I'm in defense. My physiology is in defense. I am not in parasympathetic rest and digest and heal. I am in sympathetic fight, flight, or freeze and I am not able to manifest what I want from that state. I'm not allowed to heal, or I'm not capable of healing because I am in defense in my immune system. So it affects every level of our life, our mental, emotional, spiritual, relational experience, our finances, um, everything, the state that we are in. And the next pattern is called the enduring pattern. And the predominant state of the enduring pattern is resentment and guilt. All right. Now, like Susie said, we've all had all of these emotions, all of the survival emotions and state we've all experienced. But when we get stuck in pattern, it's because we're using the main defense over and over and over and over again, and it's our main vibrational state. Okay. So for the enduring pattern, this person maybe went through the earlier stages of life without much disruption. But now at the terrible two stage where we start to feel our own will. And our job at this stage is to figure out our own will, our own power, and say no. Figure out what do I want versus what mom wants for me. And if I don't agree with what mom wants for me, I want to be able to say no. If I didn't get my no, I'm going to get stuck in this pattern. If I was embarrassed or overwhelmed or felt judged, I get stuck in the enduring pattern. Their resistance is, I don't want to be embarrassed or I don't want to be judged because I had an experience where I felt embarrassed or judged and I so overwhelmed by that I adapt the enduring pattern. And what the enduring pattern does is they bring their energy, their life force energy in and push it down and they just endure it. So they have resistance to life because I don't want to be embarrassed. So probably shouldn't even bother. I'm just going to hide. I'm going to push myself down. I don't want to be judged. It's too scary. I don't want to be embarrassed. So I can't receive because I'm not being authentic. I'm not showing up. I am going to, in the background, do a really good job, but I'm going to hide and play small. I'm going to endure. These people have incredible capacity to be loyal. They can, they have a lot of endurance, literally. They can endure a lot of shit, but they can also have so much stamina and endurance that that's the friend that you want when you need somebody to have your back and support you through hard things. They're incredibly loyal. The problem is they don't feel safe in being seen or being authentic because they're afraid of being embarrassed or judged. So what happens is their main vibrational state is resentment and guilt. Their main issue is being able to act and express themselves authentically and claim their own space. They're stuck in, I can't win, life is hard, I just have to endure it. It reminds me of Eeyore. Probably won't work, low energy and heavy because they bring all this energy in, but they shove it down, right? So they have a really hard time manifesting what they want from an authentic place, often because they push it down and they don't even know what authentic is. They just know they don't want to be embarrassed. So it doesn't feel safe enough to show up authentically.
Yeah, and I can say this is my primary pattern. And one of the things that was healing for me in going through the trauma energetics coaching, the program with my healer practitioner, is when they would ask me, what do you want? Most of the time, we don't know because we've avoided looking different. We've avoided standing out because we didn't want to be embarrassed. We didn't want to be made fun of. We didn't want to be judged. So we stuffed everything down and we're like, I don't even know who I am. I'm not even really sure what that looks like. They say I don't know a lot. The crossover, enduring and merging, is the enduring pattern will say, I don't know. The merging pattern will say, you tell me. What do you think? So
Mhm.
again, both of them are avoiding being who they really are, but in a different energy pattern.
Yeah. A
The
little bit of
merging
a
pattern
different
is gonna,
frequency,
yeah,
right?
different frequency, and the merging is gonna want to get it from somebody else. I don't have enough, so I want to take yours. You give me, you tell me, you show me. Whereas the enduring is they've got energy and they're grounded and they're not showing up.
Yep. They want to hide. I think of the turtle that has the really strong exterior and they move very slowly. So healing for the enduring pattern is movement. Get that energy moving and flowing to start to disrupt the pattern, right? So each of the patterns has a unique energy exercise or need that will be the healing factor for them to shift their state, to shift that vibrational state from their default of shame or fear or guilt, right? So the next pattern, Susie, you want to help us understand the challenger defender pattern?
Yeah. So the challenger defender pattern, this is an older, so this is further along in the developmental stages. So we're looking at 2 years, 2 to 3 years range. Um, this shows up if you're having to take on more adult responsibilities. I'm thinking about me again. I'm going to give you an example of me. My mom tells a story. And when I was 5, I walked to the grocery store by myself, totally on my own. She didn't even know I was gone because she was napping. And I think to myself, and I'm like, that might show why I show some of these tendencies towards the challenger defender pattern, is that I was taking ownership as a little adult before I was developmentally ready. And
Mhm.
so I have some of these things where, and I started recognizing this in the past year in my patterns. The resistance is being controlling, judgmental, um, not trusting other people or a higher being. So I'm going to do it myself. I am going to take care of myself. And I saw this develop later in my teenage, early 20s. Very, and combined with enduring, oh my gosh, this is just like, because not only am I like, I'm not showing up, I'm just going to endure, but I'm going to do it myself. So I'm not going to ask for help. So I'm going to be in the world just doing my own thing. This is where receiving, it's hard for us to ask for help. It's asking for support, allowing love. Again, there's a crossover so that the vibrational state for this one is anger. And I mentioned earlier, when we were looking at the chart, that for me, I was frustrated. I was angry that I wasn't being successful. So that state of anger is that vibrational state. And that combined with, you're not going to ask for help. So, like, how do you even, like, you're mad that stuff's not happening, but you're not going to ask for help. You're going to do it all yourself anyway. And you're going to control everything. So you can see where this resistance can really block any type of, when we're manifesting and we're visualizing, we have to be open to receive. So allowing others to help, asking for support, allowing people to love, opening up your heart is the healing property for this particular pattern. The main issue is trusting others, trusting the higher, trusting a higher power, trusting source, trusting universe, being okay, not being in control, being okay, not being in control, being okay, allowing things to unfold, which the leading pattern's really good at. They're like, we're just gonna let it all go. It's all gonna work out. It's fine. I'm gonna go take a nap. Like that's the leaving pattern. Challenger vendor's like, no, 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 no. I need to control. And okay, for those of you watching that do understand manifesting, and you've probably read this in multiple books, heard people talk about it, let go of the how. I was just in my meditation this morning, and my guides were telling me this is one of your biggest challenges, Susie. Letting go of the how. You don't have to know how the manifestation is going to come into reality. We got you covered, but we have to trust that. So for the challenger defender pattern, that's where the healing needs to happen, is being able to trust that
And
it's
I would add
unfolding.
to that a little bit, trust something bigger than yourself, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the wounding came from a betrayal of a parent, typically. The parent is supposed to be the one, the adult, taking care of the child. But if you were the child and saw the need for more adult support, you became that adult support. And that is a betrayal. The parent is supposed to be taking care of you, and now you are taking care of a situation that you shouldn't have had to do. And so there's a lack of belief that there is something bigger or stronger than me that can hold me. So, of course, in manifestation, then that's a problem because I'm trying to control, like Susie said so well, I'm trying to control how it's all going to happen because I can't relax into and trust that there is a universe out there that knows better than I do and that I can soften, relax, and open to. So that is the healing for this pattern, the challenger defender pattern. The gifts are they're incredible leaders. They have the charisma, they have the capacity to do really big, important things and affect a lot of people in a positive way when they open their heart and trust something bigger than themselves. The last pattern we're going to cover quickly is called the achiever pattern because these people have high capacity to achieve. They're also known as the rigid pattern because they get stuck in a false belief that love must be earned and everything comes from outside. So I have to perform perfectly so that I can receive the love that I need. Now, this pattern, they're amazingly talented, they're incredibly organized, but they're also very rigid in their thinking, in their behaviors, because they have the need to do everything just right. In this belief system, there is right or wrong, good or bad, yes or no. There's no gray area. So the rigidity is in their thinking, their behaviors, and in their body. They really hold very tightly in and they constrict all of their energy in, which then holds the belief of everything has to be just right and I have to perform perfectly to be accepted and loved. So their default emotion in vibrational state is criticism and blame. If it's not done right, that's the problem. And you did it wrong or I did it wrong. It could be I'm blaming you or I'm blaming myself, but blame is the general state. And there's resentment in that because they're not able to tune in and feel their true authentic self. They don't even know what their true authentic self is because they're so focused on the external. So they're focused on what is right and what is wrong externally, not able to tune in and what feels authentically right for me on the inside. And it's not safe for me to show up authentically because I have to be perfect to make sure I'm safe, accepted, and loved. And what if I'm not perfect inside? So I'm going to just totally ignore the possibility that I'm not perfect internally, and I'm going to show up and perform and make sure I do everything just Right. So they can't receive because they don't feel safe in flexibility. They are looking for perfection through their actions. And to manifest, we have to take inspired action, not manically manifest something by doing. There is need for action, but it's inspired action that leads to receiving what you want to manifest. And the rigid or achiever personality literally blocks their energy flow. They pull all their energy in so they have enough energy to perform. They're not in the flow of receiving. So they're externally focused on doing. So perfectionism is the downfall. And so they can't receive because they're not flexible enough to allow, and they don't know what they really want authentically because they're so externally focused. So this pattern's healing is getting messy, getting silly, playing, allow themselves to flow in any organic way that's wanted, not in a perfect way, to be loved, accepted, and safe. So their main state is still maybe a little bit better than the lower vibrational state of overwhelming fear and guilt, but they're still below that 200 mark. What we want to do is get to that place of courage. And for me, understanding the patterns and thinking about it from this energetic perspective allows me to have more tools and skills to work through the pattern so I can rewire the pattern. I can objectively observe what I'm doing and not blame myself for it, not stay in these states. But now I can start to allow a different vibrational frequency. And so that's what we're excited to share with you guys is how you can change your state. And with trauma energetics, we teach you how to regulate your physical body. That's the first and foremost, most important thing. How to regulate your physical body so that you can soon learn to identify yourself as the spiritual being having the experience in the body. You are not the body. When we are identified with fear, shame, and guilt, we think that we are bad, something is wrong with us, this is a bad situation, and we're in the lower vibrations. But as you start to understand what's happening and you start to attune and shift the energy in the body, you are empowered to start to choose how you perceive the world and choose your state, which then will drastically change what you manifest and bring into the world. When you're in defense, you're focused on what you don't want, so therefore you get more of what you don't want. But if you can at least get to that neutral state, then you're shifting the possibilities for you by shifting your vibration. And now you start to think about what you do want, and you can shift your vibration to attract what you want instead of what you don't want. So, this map of understanding can be so empowering to understand that you are an energetic being having a physical experience and you can learn to master your physical experience. But what we want to do is target your unique pattern. So understanding the patterns gives you some really clear direction and really clear tasks that you can do and take in your life to switch this to creation instead of defense. So I know, Susie, you have to go shortly here. So is there anything else you would like to say before we go?
I just want to say that again, I want to reiterate we have access to all of these patterns. We just defaulted depending on what worked for you when you were at whatever stage. My primary is enduring, my secondary is leaving. I know that because I understand the patterns. Kimberly's going to go in. I have to hop off because I have another call, but Kimberly's going to go into more detail around how you can learn more, how you can learn more of what it is that you are defaulting to. Because what happens is now that I know, I can change it. I can shift. I can move out of it and move into the gifts. I can grab the gifts from the other patterns. Now that I know what they are and I know how to identify them, and I can practice. Again, it's an active practice. This isn't something that you just blank and it's overnight.
Mhm.
And you're just all of a sudden now aware and like, woo, I'm making changes left and right. You have to tune in every single day, all the time. Being aware is step one. We are giving you awareness today. Kimberly's going to talk to you more about the programs that we offer and the sanctuary where you can come and learn more about these. So thank you all for being here. I have to hop off, but thank you, Kimberly. This was
Thanks, Susie.
amazing.
Nice to
I'll
see
see you
you.
next time.
Yeah. So again, at Somagetics, we have a lot of different opportunities for you to learn more about the patterns. The patterns can be the understanding that your brain needs to give you hope and possibilities for change. And if you want to change your life, you have to change yourself inside. And the maps of understanding gives you some really specific tools to work on and what to focus on to shift that vibrational state from those lower survival energy states up past that 200 mark so that you can move into the higher vibrational states where you're more powerful and you can create what you want on purpose instead of creating what you don't want based on the past pattern. So all you have to do is go to our school community. So we'll have the description in, or the links in the description box below on how you can learn more. Our community has a lot of free resources for you to help understand yourself better. And if you work with other people, it's really invaluable information to help you understand what the other people are going through based on their patterns so that you can support them more specifically and strategically. We also have a certification program that if you're really interested in going deeper, you can join our certification program and learn how to use the trauma energetics system for healing. And the core of the learning in that program is around the patterns, and we teach you energy skills to help shift the pattern in the trauma energetics course. So again, all the information is going to be in the description box below. You can find us at somagetics.net and get more information there, but we'd love for you to join our free community where you can come get some education for free. You can come to our live calls and get some support from our community. So thanks for watching today. We hope to see you very soon and stay tuned for more videos from this channel.